Okay. Stepped off his side.
Afternoon, folks. We'll be making a start on the webinar in just a couple of moments' time. So just waiting to see who else is going to arrive. So please do refresh your drinks, make sure your seat's nice and comfy, and we'll be starting in just a couple of moments' time. Good afternoon again, everyone. Lovely to be with you once again today. For those of you who I've not met before, my name's Andrew. I'm a counsellor working in private practice, and I'm based near Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. Health Assured asked me to do a number of different workshops and webinars on their behalf around quite a variety of different mental health topics. And it really is lovely to have your company here today to talk about a neglected but massively important part of our life, sleep. We spend a lot of our time doing it, or at least trying to sleep. So it's good to have some time dedicated today to exploring some of the importance of sleep. So while we're waiting to see who else is going to arrive for the session today, just thought I'd give you a couple of bits of housekeeping. First of all, you'll probably notice that this session is being recorded today, so that gives you a chance to watch it back again if you need to. Make sure you don't miss anything important or interesting for yourself. Please do feel free to take any notes as well as we go along through the webinar today. This is your session, and I really want you to get the best that you can out of this. The second thing to mention is that hopefully I will be able to leave some time at the end of the webinar to deal with any questions that you may have. So please do save your questions for the end, and with a bit of luck, we'll get some chance to cover some of those off. Please try and avoid using the chat function in Teams. Being of a somewhat middle-aged persuasion, as you can see, it's a bit difficult for me to do more than one thing at once. So if I'm trying to talk as well as field stuff in the chat, the chances are I'm going to get discombobulated. So please avoid using the chat function. But it is a pleasure to have your company here this afternoon. Let's have a little look then what we're going to be covering off in the next hour or so. So check out the objectives here. So what I want to get across to you through the webinar is first of all this link between health and sleep. And we'll have a think about the link between physical health and sleep and mental health and sleep, because it performs an important function in both those different spheres. We'll have a brief talk about some different sleep disorders and how they can be managed or dealt with, or just what they mean if you hear people talking about these or things of that nature. It's a really good idea to have some awareness of what might be going on. We'll talk about managing your energy levels too. Um, this is something that's sensible to work on here. Getting a good night's sleep is not necessarily about going to bed super early, because what's the point of doing that if your body's not ready for sleep? So we'll have a look at that. And then we'll do a bit of work on some ideas around sleep hygiene. That's some ways that you can improve your sleep. What can you do to help yourself with that? And hopefully I'll have the time to signpost you towards some good resources online as well. If you ever needing to think about improving your sleep or monitoring things, there's some cracking stuff out there that you can start using. Okay, so let us make a start then, and we'll begin with thinking about, well, why do we actually need sleep? Um, it's a really good question, because if you think about it in evolutionary terms, um, sleep is a time when we're very vulnerable. Um, and so when we were all living out there as hunter-gatherers in the wilds, there must be a really good reason why for 7 or 8 hours a day, we spend time inactive, unconscious, and unable to respond to predators trying to attack us. So sleep must have a really, really good reason for it to happen. Otherwise, we'd do it differently, wouldn't we? So have a look at the slide here. That hopefully this explains some of the reasons why we need sleep and why we do this. And thinking about these reasons for needing sleep, I'd encourage you to think back to a time when you were sleep deprived. Perhaps if you're a parent, maybe when your children were very young, you weren't getting decent sleep. Or perhaps if you've been to university or college, maybe coming up to exam times, you weren't sleeping well. Have a think back to some of those times when your sleep's been disturbed. Maybe changing shifts if you're a shift worker too. Um, and you'll see that from your experience, I'm sure you'll bear out these reasons for why we do need sleep. So it helps with memory and brain functionality. Think of all the information you're taking in every millisecond of every day. And sleep gives the brain a chance to concentrate on doing its filing then. Um, so it can help to restore functionality to the brain as you get tired. Um, the connections between the different parts of the brain can be less good. Um, and so it can be that sleep helps to restore some of that connectivity and helps improve memory then. We think about a boost in mood. So again, think about times when you've been overtired and sleep deprived. Think about how you felt. The chances are you weren't feeling on top of the world looking down on creation, were you? Chances are you'd be a bit grumpy and irritable, maybe. Oh my goodness. So sleep helps us to process emotions and to get back to a place where we're able to react more reasonably to things. Sleep is good for your heart too. When we sleep, blood pressure reduces and your body gets at rest. When you're up for long periods of time, so is your blood pressure. And high blood pressure, as we know, leads to heart disease and stroke. And indeed, hypertension is the leading cause of burden on the NHS in England and Wales. So it's important that we do whatever we can to help manage blood pressure. So thinking about how you manage your sleep can be a really important component of that. Another aspect then is improved athletic performance. There is a lot in sports science about getting healthy sleep. Sleep correlates with the efficiency of the brain, and so it's no surprise that better sleep provides better reaction times and better speed. I don't know how many of you are following the men's Ashes in cricket at the moment, but there was an interesting statistic shared on Test Match Special the other day about the performance of the Australian batter Steve Smith. His batting average noticeably declines as a test match goes on. The earlier he bats in a test match, the better he is likely to score. And it really is marked, the difference in his average. Why is that? It's because he struggles with sleep during a test match. He's better on day one because he's more alert and awake. As the test match goes on, Mr. Smith's sleep declines. And of course, then his athletic performance as a batter becomes worse. Now, Steve Smith is quite a strong example of that. But if we look at other sports and other sports people, we can see that there is a lot mentioned about the importance of sleeping and making sure you get decent rest. So sleep hygiene is another term that's often used these days, and I'm hearing it more and more. Um, Whether it's because of my practice as a therapist or just out there in the world, it's certainly a term I've become more aware of in the past few years. And what is sleep hygiene? Well, it, it's not about physical hygiene. It's not about having clean pajamas and clean bedding every night. Um, this term is used to think about good sleep habits. So think about the way that you were prepared for bed as a child. The chances are you had a set bedtime and a set time to get up in the morning. The chances are you were discouraged from eating Smarties and chocolates and goodness knows what in the run up to bedtime. You were given a fighting chance of getting a decent night's sleep and giving your parents or caregivers some rest. Sleep hygiene is doing the same sort of thing for yourself as a grown up. It's giving yourself the best chance to get a decent night's sleep as regularly as possible. Now, there are many medications which are used to treat sleep problems, but these tend only to be effective short term. Ongoing use of sleeping medication can lead to dependence, and it can interfere in the healthy sleep that we need and into developing good sleeping habits independent of that medication. And that can paradoxically prolong the sleep difficulties. So it's good to talk to your GP if you're experiencing sleep problems, but only view medication as being a short-term thing. Certainly, Health Assured recommend good sleep hygiene as a really important part in treating sleep disturbances and sleep disorders, and I would certainly agree with that. I stand by that too. Um, and it's combining that approach of sleep hygiene with other approaches such as therapy or medication. Um, and good sleep hygiene is about putting yourself in the best position to sleep well as often as possible. So we'll have a look at some of those strategies a little bit later on. But the basic is reduce exciting activities before bed, cut down on sugary foods or stimulating substances before bed. Give yourself a fighting chance of a good night's sleep. Um, because how can you expect to have a good night's sleep if you're drinking double espressos at 9 o'clock at night? It's just not going to happen. So, getting in good habits can be a really healthy thing. Now, sleep has an effect on the brain. And there's a small organ, an almond-shaped organ at the base of the brain called the amygdala. Now, I am aware that I'm talking to NHS professionals here, and goodness knows you've probably got more knowledge about the structure of the brain and anatomy than I do. My best qualification in biology is an A level from about 30 years ago now. So don't take my word as gospel on this. But the amygdala is one of the emotional centers of the brain, and it is an oversimplification to say that this is part of the reptilian brain, along with things like the hypothalamus and what have you. Um, but it is an older part of the brain than the more evolved prefrontal cortex. And what the amygdala does is it looks after our fight or flight feelings, gets us in that responsive state where we're going to fight or run away or freeze when faced with a problem. So things like stress and anger and fear. Pardon me, I seem to be doing a lot of sniffing today. I do apologize for that. When we're well rested, all the different parts of the brain are able to communicate well with one another, and that coordination is very good. But as we become tired, that coordination can break down a little bit. So when we're well rested, the prefrontal cortex, that more reasoning part of the brain, can say, whoa, 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 hold on, amygdala, just take a chill pill a moment. There's nothing going on here. Um, and we process feelings better. But when we're tired, that mediating effect of the prefrontal cortex isn't as strong. And so we're more prone to things like overreaction to problems or to grumpiness or to startling more quickly. And that coordination is less good. So the building of good connections within the brain, giving your brain a chance to do its filing and its processing and looking at emotional regulation, these are really good and important functions of sleep, stuff that we all need. So how much sleep do we really need? Have a look at the slide here. There's some pretty interesting information on here. No matter what your age, healthy sleep is critical for everyone, young or old, working, studying, whatever you're doing in life. We all need to get healthy sleep. We all need to retain information and learn skills to thrive in life. Now, in the younger years, so school children and infants and smaller children, their brain's doing a lot more work of learning and building connections. It's also growing as well. So school kids and infants need a lot more sleep than us grown-ups. So school children, it suggests between 9 and 11 hours of sleep per night. 1 year olds, 11 to 14 hours of sleep per night or per day might actually be a better way of putting that for little kids. Um, as we get older, as you move into your teenage years, your requirement for sleep drops a little, 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. But the way the teenage brain is, that sleep can be gotten at different hours to how it might be for us as fully developed adults. And that's why for a lot of teenagers it can almost feel like permanent jet lag because their body is taking sleep not when it's really best for it. It's a little bit out of kilter with those biorhythms that we expect. So teenagers might need around 8 to 10 hours sleep per night, and as adults, as fully developed, grown-up people, we need around 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Now, there are always exceptions. And I'm sure you can tell me about exceptions from politics and history, people like Napoleon and Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher, who said that they didn't need as much sleep as the rest of us. Fine and dandy. Churchill was known for taking naps during the day and working long into the night, but then he also would have a bottle of champagne for breakfast. So not really the average person. We all need different amounts of sleep, and the average for most of us works out at between 7 and 9 hours. As I said, there always will be outliers, um, but just because you need 8 hours sleep doesn't make you a big failure. It makes you a human being. The best sleep habits of all, though, are about consistency and building a healthy routine that allows each and every one of us, regardless of our age, to get the optimum amount of sleep that we need every night. And that is the amount of sleep that allows you to keep on top of the challenges that you face day to day. So maybe you feel that you can operate on less sleep. Maybe it's 5 or 6 hours you need every night. But so long as it's not a problem for you and you're able to still do your day-to-day tasks, you don't feel that concentration's slipping, then that's fine. But in general, it's around 7 to 9 hours sleep. And in line with what I was mentioning earlier about sleep hygiene, um, one of the recommendations there is to set yourself a consistent time to go to bed at night and a consistent time to get up in the morning that stays more or less the same whether it's a weekday or a weekend or you're on holiday or whatever. It's good to establish that steady routine for yourself, and that's why shift work can be a problem for people, because you're going to sleep at odd times in the day. You don't have a consistent time when you are going to go to bed and get up, because that varies depending what pattern you're working. I used to work nights. I used to work on the oil rigs in the North Sea, and I was doing 12-hour nights then. And that transition from being on the rig to being at home, then being at home to being on the rig, was always really difficult for me, because my sleep pattern was just totally out of kilter then for a few days. It was like severe jet lag a couple of times a month. One of the reasons why I'm doing this job now. So we've spoken a little bit there about how much sleep we need, the effect of sleep on the brain. We're going to have a little look now at a number of different sleep disorders. So let's have a look at these, and we've picked these particularly because these are quite common disorders. So let's have a look at them. First one is insomnia, and this is where you have problems sleeping. And according to the Mental Health Foundation's research in 2019, insomnia is the most common sleep disorder of all, and it affects, wait for this, around 20% of people worldwide. Wow, that's a big number. 1 in 5 people suffer from insomnia. And that isn't just the occasional poor night's sleep. That's symptoms such as problems falling asleep, problems staying asleep so you can get off to sleep okay, but then you're awake after a short period, maybe an hour and a half or so, and then you can't get back to sleep. Waking up too early, daytime sleepiness, so feeling drained and lethargic during the day because your brain and your body aren't getting the rest they need at night. And that can lead to things like anxiety then, because remember that link between the quality of sleep and the activity of the amygdala. Um, if the prefrontal cortex isn't able to regulate the amygdala as well, and one of the things that prevents that is insomnia, then you are going to be more responsive to stress and strain. You are more likely to be anxious. People also struggle with concentration, with their memory, and with irritability as well. And again, I'd encourage you to think back to a time in your life when maybe you weren't sleeping well, maybe due to worry to do with exams or shift patterns or being a new parent. Remember what that felt like. Put yourself back in that position. And that's what it can be like to experience insomnia on a regular basis. Very unpleasant condition. The next one to think about is obstructive sleep apnea. Um, so, this is the disorder where you stop breathing briefly at intervals during the night. And so you constantly have a disturbed sleep or a poorer quality of sleep. And very often the sufferer is not necessarily aware of it, but it wakes them up enough that gasping for breath and then opening the airway again, that 30-second pause in sleep can be enough to really interrupt somebody's sleep patterns. So maybe you can feel like you're getting a good night's sleep, but really you're not. And on the other side of it, if you're sleeping with somebody or sharing a bedroom with somebody who has sleep apnea, um, this can be a problem too, because this can lead to a lot of snoring, which can be disturbing to try and live with. But then also it can be distressing because you're aware of your partner stopping breathing. And so your partner can suffer from insomnia too, as well as you having your sleep apnea. Now, there are some very effective medical treatments that can work for obstructive sleep apnea. Not least is having a positive pressure device, which forces oxygen down your airway at slightly higher pressure than atmospheric, and that keeps the airway open. Because what is happening with sleep apnea is that there's a problem with muscle tone sometimes, in the soft palate or in the tongue that causes the airway to be blocked. Some of the things that are linked with sleep apnea are things like alcoholism and obesity. Also, smoking can have a bearing on this too. So, some lifestyle changes can be good to help with this if you're prone to it. Other things to think about, well, various movement syndromes. And these sound really trivial. They don't have that exciting Latin sounding name. So, we're talking about things like restless legs, which sounds really trivial. Your legs are a bit twitchy. Well, yeah. But when you think about it, the actual experience of things like restless legs is really distressing. It can feel as if your legs are alive with insects crawling under the skin, or you're twitching and you can't really control it at all. And this can have a big impact on sleep then. And it can make it very difficult to stay asleep and to get restful sleep. Some skin conditions can also have this effect too. Things like dermatitis or ringworm or athlete's foot can cause parts of your body, parts of your skin to feel very itchy or to feel very hot, very responsive to temperature. And that can be very problematic if you're trying to get off to sleep. Things like restless legs can be more common as you age. Certainly something that can be in place for women who have been through the menopause, and middle-aged men as well can pick up things like these movement disorders too. The final one to ever think about is narcolepsy, and this is a very very difficult disorder to try and live with, because it can cause you to fall asleep at random times during the day. It's a brain disorder that has problems with how your body regulates sleep and tiredness. Then, and you can fall into little micro sleeps where you could be sat in a meeting like this, the narcolepsy kicks in and you have a micro sleep for 30 seconds or a minute. Not a problem if you're sat behind a desk, but imagine if you drive for a living. You, I've known people at work who have lost their jobs because they drove for a living, they were diagnosed with narcolepsy, and they couldn't keep a driving license then. And so this can have a big effect on your life, how you work, how you live, your emotional health and relationships too. So while it might sound like a really unusual thing, it has very big impacts on people's lives. So we'll have a little look now at mental health and sleep. We've spoken there a little bit about different sleep disorders and why we need sleep. Let's have a little look then about the way that mental health and sleep interact. So those of you that were with me the other day for the resilience and or the stress webinars, hopefully you'll remember that insomnia often comes up as a sign of stress, anxiety, depression. A lot of mental health disorders um, have an influence on sleep patterns, and those with mental health problems are more likely to have insomnia or other sleep disorders. And I know when, in my past, when I was suffering from anxiety and depression, one of the things that really helped me was working on my sleep and working to get better sleep. So using things like mindfulness activities and thinking about sleep hygiene was very good for me. So the actual strong relationship between sleep and mental health, that cognitive relationship, isn't really clear at the moment. So if you're looking for a PhD or further PhDs for some of you maybe, this could be a fruitful area of research. Neuroimaging and neurochemistry studies, though, they suggest that a good night's sleep helps be a bit of a buttress for your mental and emotional resilience. Uh, Whereas chronic sleep deprivation sets the stage for negative thinking and emotional vulnerability. Um, if we think about the really dark side of life, if we think about techniques that have been used in prisoner interrogations and torture in the past, sleep deprivation was a very big part of that. It was seen as a way of breaking down the subject's resistance to interrogation and to get confessions out of people. So while we may feel that sleep is something that isn't quite an optional extra for mental health, but maybe isn't very high up on the list, we need to challenge that thinking. And then thinking about our physical health too. Um, we all miss sleep for different reasons, don't we? Things like celebrations or fulfilling a duty with with a new baby in our lives, or as some of you might experience, puppies can be very demanding, and cats too. Yes, um, but the result of a sleepless night remains the same. Young or old, whatever the reason, your body's been deprived of something that's essential for maintaining health and energy. And some of the ways then that sleep deprivation affects people, well, we have the classic panda eyes, don't we? Dark circles, puffy eyes. Lack of sleep can cause fluid to accumulate below your eyes, which leads to this panda eye appearance. Hunger pains. Lack of sleep changes the way that your body will interpret hunger signals, which can cause you to feel hungry when really you're not, but can lead to things like overeating then. We can have difficulty focusing. So remember what I said about sleep improving your memory and your emotional functioning, but also things like reaction times. Remember what I said about Steve Smith. Sleeping less can cause forgetfulness and slower reaction times. And the immune system is affected too by lack of sleep. So that can leave you open to more of the bugs and nasties that are out there in the environment. So it really is worth taking sleep seriously for your physical health. So, okay, let's take a quick pause there and review where we're up to. So we've covered a bit on some sleep disorders, about the link between physical health, mental health, and sleep. And we've spoken some about the amount of sleep that you might need. So now we're going to move on to looking at an idea here about how you can manage your energy, and why it's important to manage energy and not time. And I want to take a cue from this chap here. Doesn't he look comfy there? That looks like a lovely spot for a nap. My goodness. Um, but what we find is that there are only 24 hours in a day. So there's only so much activity that we can do in one day. Um, and so it isn't about cramming more and more into the day, because there's only so much we can do. And there will always be more stuff that we can do. Um, it's about looking at your energy levels. So think about how you might boost some of these energy levels here. And I've got 6 suggestions over this slide and the next one that might help you to improve your productivity, help you with your happiness, and boost your energy without making massive changes. Because, of course, if you're looking to make change in your life, the sort of changes that you can make are the small, sustainable ones. If you're trying to make big changes, a 180-degree shift in your life, and you try and do that overnight, you're likely to meet with failure, and that's discouraging. So look at little changes that you can make, stuff that you can sustain now, or you can start now, and then sustain over a period of time. So let's have a look at this. Be fully present. Focus on the present moment. Looking at the past, well, we can all regret stuff that we've done in the past. And isn't that a classic thing that you go to bed at night, you put your head down on your pillow, you're drifting off to sleep, and then you remember that really cringy thing you said in the playground as a 14-year-old. Oh my goodness. Um, So we can focus on the past, and that gives us a cause for regret or for feeling guilty. We can project things into the future, and we can worry about all sorts of different scenarios, things that haven't even happened or may never actually happen. So, what's the point? Since when did worrying change anything? So, focus on the now. Try to multitask less. Put your phone down when you're speaking with other people. Be fully present in what you're doing and really experience the present moment. Maybe even think about picking up some ideas around mindfulness as well. That can be a really good thing to tap into to keep you in the present. Think about your resilience. As we encounter stressful situations or difficult circumstances, we need to allow then our body some time to find a way to calm and relax. This is your body and your mind's way of repairing itself. If we don't manage to get that, we'll then be in a continuous state of feeling tense, this hyper awareness, hyper alertness, um, hyper arousal that I spoke about yesterday when we were discussing anger and aggression. So think about how you take that time to reflect after a difficult experience. That could even be going getting yourself a cold drink, a couple of deep breaths, just taking 5 before you get back into things. Taking care of yourself naturally helps to fight stress in your life, and that's resilience. And the care that you take of yourself isn't um, thinking about you as an employee or you as a partner or a parent if you have kids or a child of your parents. It's looking at you as an individual, you as you. What do you need right now? Calm. So calm can be found in doing a short meditation, uh, doing a bit of yoga, having a stroll, having a soak in the bath, or simply a minute of breathing exercises. And I'll show you a breathing exercise shortly. Um, or noting a thing that you're grateful for every day. That idea of gratitude is a lovely thing to do. So before you go to bed tonight, as you stood there brushing your teeth, what's something you're grateful for that's happened today? Um, or what have you reminded of that you're grateful for in your life? The purpose is that once you've found some ways of calming the turmoil and the tension in yourself, um, you don't unlearn them. These are habits that you can then get into. So the next time you feel that stuff's getting on top of you, you've got some techniques in your toolkit then, and you can remind yourself of some of these things that work for you. How about taking some rest? So when we're rushing towards goals or deadlines, we can start to feel uninspired and we can lose motivation. And don't we find that when we're trying to push ourselves, that drive and motivation can go. But sometimes the most creative ideas are had when your mind is rested and you're not thinking about anything in particular. Those times stood in the shower first thing in the morning, how often has an inspiration come to you at that point? So rest, don't force things, and do some stuff that you enjoy that can be a bit distracting too, and can help you find a bit of space and a bit of peace. The final two things are linked: compassion and self-compassion. So very often I work with people in my professional life as a therapist who are very self-critical. Uh, I'm one of them. Very self-critical. Maybe talk about poor self-esteem and comparison to other people. What I try and encourage myself to do and encourage my clients to do is show some compassion. Be kind to yourself. It's self-compassion and not self-criticism that we learn from. Self-criticism tends to deny our failures, whereas self-compassion allows us to see what we need to do to improve. Um, Research shows that people who are more self-compassionate experience less anxiety and stress, and are more willing to take risks and to be curious. So talk to yourself as you would talk to a friend. Would you say some of the things that you say in your head to yourself? Would you say them out loud to your closest friend? No. And this comes into the final point about compassion then. And part of the stress and strain in a lot of workplaces and in relationships in general is that we lose connection with one another. So solid relationships of care, of solidarity, of mutual respect and concern, that can really help us to feel better in ourselves, feel more confident in our workplaces, and therefore help with sleep. Think about that solid foundation that you can place for yourself. Think about some of these six things. Let me just repeat all six to you: the full presence, resilience, calm, rest, self compassion, and compassion. None of those things are rocket science. And I'm sure that each and every one of us can do something around some of that. So, I mentioned a breathing technique, I mentioned relaxation. Here's a lovely one for you to try. Um, and you can do this now if you want to. You can do this before you go to bed or when you just get up in the morning or any time that you feel that you need to get the pigeons back in the loft for yourself or give yourself a little oasis of calm. So let's have a look at this. So what you do with this one, and you can do this as I talk if you like, or you can just try and remember it for the future. Um, but sit comfortably in your chair, put your bottom as far back in your chair as it will go, and let the chair back take the strain. So you're sitting in a relaxed, upright posture. You're not sat to attention. You're nice and relaxed. Place your hands in your lap and close your eyes. Both feet flat on the ground. And breathe in for a count of 3. Hold your breath for a count of 3. And breathe out for a count of 6. So it's a nice deep in breath. You hold your breath and then a slow release. And repeat that, and repeat that, and repeat that. And as your mind, when you're doing that breathing technique, as your mind will start to wander, just bring yourself back to your breathing. It's good. It's what you need to do. Your mind will wander, but then you come back to your breath. And if you try that for a couple of times a day, the slide said 5 or 10 minutes a day, you will notice some improvement. But what do you notice when you do that? Well, the breathing technique works, as it says on the slide here, because it requires a little bit of concentration. This isn't a natural way of breathing. So we're having to focus on what we're doing, and the element of counting helps with that. And then the encouragement to just come back to your counting and your breath if you need to. It also works on the body's autonomic nervous system too. When we breathe in, receptors in the body are stimulated to quicken our heartbeat, increase the breathing rate, and boost the production of adrenaline. When we breathe out, receptors are stimulated to slow us down, slow the heartbeat, reduce breathing, and decrease adrenaline production. So, in simpler terms, when we breathe in, we get excited, and when we breathe out, we relax. So, if you're feeling the need to do some relaxation, breathe out for longer than you breathe in. And I've given you the instruction of how you do this when you sat down. You can try it when you're trying to sleep as well. Do a quick body scan. Picture every part of your body from the crown of your head to the tip of your big toe. Picture each body part in turn and imagine where it is right now and the position it's in right now and the support your pillow and your mattress are giving you. So practicing mindfulness, that can help to calm worries and to learn better ways of managing things. Um, and we'll talk a little bit now in the final section about some things that you can do to help improve the sleep. So you can go to bed early. You can get yourself a nice early night. You can say, Andrew, I'm going to go to bed at 8:30 tonight. Whoa, okay, good early night, fantastic. But if your body's not ready for it, you're not going to sleep well, and you've just wasted time then. If you go to bed early, but you lay in bed worrying about the next day, and you're consumed by worry, and it's just, you can't switch your brain off, you're going to be draining energy rather than gaining energy. So, how can you improve some of that sleep? Well, think about your health. Now, we've said there earlier, haven't we, that physical health and mental health affect sleep. Um, so, working on your physical health and mental health can be good ways of helping yourself with sleep. Um, when you've done some physical exercise, say, enjoy that tiredness that your body feels. Enjoy that feeling that you get after a swim and you're getting yourself out of the pool and your limbs and joints feel heavy. That can be a lovely feeling. But address any health concerns you have, because isn't health one of the things that we worry about in bed? Yeah, of course it is. So addressing some of those health concerns, um, maybe not fixing them right away, that may be impossible to do, but at least starting some investigations can be a good thing. Because the thing to do is to put those worries to one side as you get into bed. Think about the physical environment that you're in. Your bedroom is there for sleep. You go to bed to sleep, not to feel anxious, not to watch TV, not to check your emails or scroll through TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, or whatever other social media you're on. And you certainly don't eat in bed either. All these things are distractions from getting you off to sleep. So it is vitally important that you reduce those distractions in the bedroom. Kick the telly out of bed. If you use your phone as an alarm clock, invest a few pounds and buy a little travel alarm clock so that you're not using the phone and the phone isn't a temptation there to keep you awake. Cut down on your screen time before you go to bed as well. Um, because social media is obviously designed to keep your attention and to be interesting. So you can be scrolling through Facebook or Reddit or whatever until 2 in the morning and barely know where the evening's gone. And at that point, you're not going to get to sleep then because your brain's still stimulated. So bed is about sleep. It's not about telly or eating or smoking or any of that stuff. Think about your attitude. So try to relax in the time leading up to going to bed. Uh, I've mentioned physical exercise earlier, and that's generally a good thing to be doing, of course. But maybe going for a run or lifting heavy things down the gym just before you go to bed isn't such a great idea because it's stimulating you. So think about doing relaxing activities. So a tepid bath, a warm bath, not necessarily a hot bath, or a shower before bedtime. Think about doing some mindfulness, maybe that breathing exercise, or some stuff from Headspace or Calm or Insight Timer, or even Health Assured's app, which Heidi will tell us about in a few minutes' time. Um, I've been a book junkie since I was about 5, and I've got to the stage over the years where I have to read before I go to bed. Well, and that's fine because that relaxes me then. So I read my book for a bit, I get my brain into a different place. I'm not thinking about the day. I'm thinking about whatever the content of the book is, and I'm ready for sleep then. Think about lifestyle choices too. So here's a point here: caffeine that stays in your body for up to 10 hours. Wow. So if you're planning on going to bed before midnight tonight, maybe that coffee you've got next to you or that tea needs to be swapped over for a herbal tea or a drink of water. So refrain from drinking caffeinated drinks. And remember, decaf doesn't equal no caf, it's just reduced caffeine. Eating later in the day can disturb your sleep too. I've certainly had plenty of times in my previous jobs where I've been out for a meal with work, and I've got into my hotel room bed and I just can't sleep then because I'm full of food, I'm trying to digest, and I'm not getting a decent sleep. Alcohol can seem helpful in getting you to sleep, and it certainly does help, but it affects the quality of sleep. Yeah, increases your blood pressure and your heart rate, gives you lighter sleep. Nicotine, another lifestyle choice. Smoking, vaping, gum, patches, all contain this stimulant, nicotine. So quitting nicotine, that correlates with improving insomnia and sleep apnea. So if you are a smoker or if you've switched over to vapes or what have you, try to avoid cigarettes or vapes later in the day too, because nicotine is a stimulant. And how about thinking about your sleep plan? So one thing I would really encourage you to do is head over to the Sleep Council's website. That is sleepcouncil.org.uk. Um, they have a really good thing on there about sleep diary, and that helps you to actually collate information about your sleep then. Is it as good or as bad as I think it is? And this can also encourage you to get a bit scientific with some of the things that you can do to track your sleep. So, what different things are you trying? When was the last time you had a caffeinated drink in the day? Did you do some meditation before you went to bed? Note those things in your sleep diary, and then you can start to see if these things are helping you. Sleep schedule can help your body clock to adapt to going to bed at a certain time. So if you struggle to sleep at night, and just in general, it's a good idea to stick to a similar time each night to go to bed. Um, Everybody is comfortable with different temperatures, sounds, and lights in the bedroom. Try and find the best way that works for you. But in general, keeping your bedroom cooler than the other spaces in your living space can be a good idea. Blackout curtains, particularly this time of year, or if you're a shift worker, are a good thing too. And you can pick those up relatively cheaply from places like Dunelm Mill. You don't have to get handmade bespoke curtains done. You can get some decent blackout curtains and not break the bank. Maybe using things like white noise, then plenty of playlists for that on Spotify, or earplugs or what have you can help too. But I really like the idea of keeping a sleep diary. My background is science and I like to gather data. So think about gathering data on your sleep patterns. How much are you actually getting and what different things are you trying? There's also, and we're coming towards the end now of my part of the content, um, there are also any number of different resources that you can get hold of that can be good to help with sleeping. So various apps of Sleep Cycle and Sleep Sounds, Headspace and Calm are both good ones too. The free app Insight Timer is good, and Health Assured's My Healthy Advantage app is extremely good too. Podcasts you can get, Nothing Much Happens. That's bedtime stories for grown-ups. What could be better? That's a lovely thing that you can download and listen to, available on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from. Um, any number of different things that you can access there. So that's everything that I wanted to cover off with you this afternoon. We've got a little bit of time now for some questions, if anybody has any questions. And if not, Heidi will give us an overview of the EAP. So, any questions? Looks like we have no questions, Heidi. So,
No?
over to you.
Excellent. No, thank you, Andrew. I love this sleep one because I feel like I learn something new every single time I listen to it. So thank you. So yeah, my name's Heidi. I'm just going to give everyone a really sort of a high level overview of the EAP and how it is that it can support in general, but also when it comes to sleep as well. Andrew's mentioned a few things already that I will just bring your attention to and let you know how you can access all of that. So the first thing is the app. So I'm not sure if any of you have already got this downloaded. If you don't, I would definitely recommend doing so. There is a wealth of information and resources that you can access through this. Particularly when it comes to sleep, there are loads of breathing exercises that you can do. There are lots of different videos. Um, there's 4-week plans. So if you are looking at potentially cutting down caffeine, for example, there's a 4-week plan for that. Smoking as well. Loads and loads of different things that you can utilize to help you really improve your sleep hygiene. There's little mini health checks, and like I say, a wealth of sort of articles, videos, and resources for you to access there. If you haven't downloaded it already, you can do so sort of through the Play Store, the App Store, however it is that you kind of download your app. You will all have your own individual My Healthy Advantage code. So if you're not sure of what that is, just speak to your relationship manager or your account director, and they can provide you with that. Now, on the next slide, the first thing that I do just want to bring everyone's attention to is the Spotify account. So Andrew's mentioned previously that listening to things to help you soothe yourself is a really great way to help you sleep. We do have a sleep playlist that you can just pop on amongst other playlists as well. But it's a really good way to help you drift off. We have the mental health hour as well, which is something you can access if maybe you don't necessarily feel like you want to call the helpline, but you have a question that you'd quite like to ask. This is hosted through our Instagram. So again, sleep is something that we've discussed before, but there's a load of different topics that we do on a regular, well, it's monthly basis, and our in-house counsellors will be answering those questions. So feel free to join in with that. And then we also have our Peace of Mind podcast too. So again, another thing for you to listen to, which is quite relaxing. Some of the topics we do talk about are topics that maybe aren't necessarily the best to listen to just before you go to bed. But it's just another good thing to draw your attention to that we do. We try to tackle topics that do typically have some kind of stigma attached to them or are a little bit more taboo, just to really open up the conversation and try and break those stigmas and taboos. But the main thing to know is if you do ever need anything, the helpline is here 24/7, 365 days a year. Please give us a call if you need absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be just to access structured counselling. It can just be if you need to have a bit of a rant or you've had a bad day. It's there to support you whenever you need it.
Thank you very much, Heidi. So yeah, just to build on what Heidi was saying there, it is important to realize that you have a really good resource available for yourself here with Health Assured. It's 100% confidential. It's free for you to use. So why not use this resource? It's brilliant. And I'm not just
100%.
saying that. I'm a big advocate for EAPs. Give it a go. Get in touch. Okay, so any further questions then, or any questions at all arising from what we've spoken about this afternoon? Any thoughts, anyone? Okay, well, thank you so much for your attention today. It's been lovely as always having your company here. I believe tomorrow we're on, is it women's mental health and men's mental health webinars tomorrow? So hopefully see you along for one of those. Okay, do take care,
Okay.
folks. All the best. Cheerio.
Take care.